and this is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. So rather than do a grand tour for autumn, and we're well and truly into autumn now, I thought I'd pick out some of the choicest bits and put them together in like a montage of interesting things, interesting developments that's happening at this time of year. And hopefully some of those will be practical tips and advice for you to apply to your own growing situation. And of course, if you have any pearls of wisdom, please do put them in the comments down below so that I can learn from you and we can all learn from each other. So coming up, we have new plants, we have new blooms, we look at methods of hanging, we look at the interim results of the external bubble wrap, we have new lighting developments, we have new carnivorous plant development and loads more. So let's jump in. And we are in. Okay, we're going to start with a new plant. You can see the ferns are doing particularly well here today, and as we noticed when we did the lighting video the other day, that where they are in relation to the light up there, they're actually getting the best of the light, which is a little bit ironic really, seeing as these are the shade lovers and the plants that actually are highlight plants are getting the best of the light. But that's another issue for another day. So they are doing particularly well, so I thought, well, let's go for a little more fernery down here, and one that I've been after for rather a long time. I know it doesn't look particularly fantastic at the moment because it's very small, is this one. So this one is a maidenhair fern. Yes, it's a tropical one. There are loads of maidenhair ferns. This one is Adiantum raddianum wightii. Again, it's not the one I actually wanted. I actually wanted one, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was Laura, one of the subscribers, who actually mentioned one to me, and I looked for it for a long time. But this one is still beautiful. It's got beautiful black stems. It's got these gorgeous, delicate little, they look like little leaflets on the fronds. The one that I wanted, these were much bigger, and they actually turned like a reddy bronzy colour. It was definitely a tropical one, and it wasn't one that lost or shed any of its leaves or fronds. But this will do for now, so it's certainly a start in my maidenhair journey. So I'm going to put that back down there for now. You might have just noticed on the way down there that my favourite one here is all crispy, and I've lost a lot of fronds, and that was down to not watering it in time, and it's crisped up. But hopefully, if I can keep on top of it during the winter, it should be easy to keep on top of during the winter when it's not really sunny and warm. This particular Pteris quadriaurita will recover, I'm sure it will. So let's move on to the next. So everyone's favourite, I put it right at the beginning of the video, new blooms. So let's have a look what we've got here. So we've got Oncidium sotoanum in bloom, doing particularly well, looking very nice. And I must say that the leaves are actually greening up somewhat, and I'm putting that down to the lighting, the fact that I've put an LED light here. I'm sorry it's flickering for you. I'll quickly move off there. So yeah, it's looking really nice at the moment. It did suffer quite a little bit through the summer months, and again I'm going to put that down to the lighting. You can see these leaves here are much greener, and I know this tends to be like a more yellowy leaved one, and I know that can be down to the lighting. And you can see, since I've actually put the lighting in here, even though it's only LED, it's giving them some wavelengths. I know it's not perfect, it's not optimal, but it's better than nothing, and it's certainly cheaper. So I'll come back to lighting a little bit later on, because I want to discuss something else with that. So that's one new bloom, Oncidium sotoanum. We've got a couple of new cyclamen here. I like to add to my cyclamen collection. They're all cyclamen persicum hybrids. What I don't want to do is get blooms that are the same as the ones I've already got. I want something different. Lovely nice dark deep red on that one there. That one is one that I've brought back to life from last year. So there's one there, 2, 3, 4 that I've brought back to life. The others at the moment are pretty slow in getting going. I've not really delved into there to see whether they've rotted off, but what I'm going to do, I mean, I've watered them now, and I'm just going to leave them, and if they don't start to do something within the next couple of weeks, then I'll have a root and see if I've lost them. There's nothing I can actually do. You do lose these things, especially when they're only small to begin with. Obviously, the bigger the corms, the better, the more chance that you've got of actually keeping them through to the next year. So still on new blooms. I've turned the LED light off for you now so that you don't get a headache. So I think it has worked quite well. We've got some beautiful blooms here on, this was actually, I think, my first orchid, or certainly one of my first orchids. the Dendrobium nobile hybrid. Of course, it's a very popular one. I know you can get it in all the different supermarkets and so on. And I know it doesn't have loads and loads and loads of blooms on, but it's not too bad considering that it has been in the dark, relatively speaking, as we've recently found out. I also have noticed, again, still talking about the lighting, that these epidendrums, you know, I did mention about how they really do lose. They like suddenly collapse, really. It's as if, and I know other people, I think Roger has had the same problem, one or two other people had the same problem. Beautiful blooms on it, and then all the leaves collapse on the canes. I can see some new growth down there, and I do think that's happened since I got the LED lights and put them into place. So maybe this is another one with lighting issues. Same with this one. Yeah, it's not looking great, but there's some new signs of growth down there. So we're supposed to be doing new blooms, aren't we? So this one is always in bloom. Phragmipedium ainsworthii. Great present from Ed because it just keeps coming and coming and coming. Certainly keeps on giving. Couple of spikes out. We've got this Phragmipedium bessii. I've been waiting very impatiently for that to come out. That'll be a first blooming for that. There's another, I think it's Cambria back there in spike, but obviously they're not blooms. Let's just look at new blooms. Oh yes, loads on the Pelargoniums. I think this is a species one, only small, but still fairly pretty. I mean, at this time of year, you'll take anything, won't you? So that one is Pelargonium reniforme, I believe. Loads of streps still out. I know you've seen all these streps, but there are some new ones. Oh, just noticed a little ladybird there. Can you see that? I'm not going to get rid of it because, you know, it may well be one of the invasive Spanish species, but in here, you know, if it keeps the pests down, that's okay for me. So let's just move around to some of the other streps that you might not have seen in their full glory. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the names of them. That's a fairly new one that you've not seen. Oh, little carnivorous plant there. Some gorgeous blooms on some of these. There's just so many hybrids with the streps that it's really hard to know when to stop. I mean, just look at the colours here. Great for this time of year, and these will go through right the way through to December, and in many cases it's only my own feeling that they should have a little rest. I feel that they get better results next year if you give them a little rest towards the end of the year. Only at the most it's only for a month or two, even if that. So yeah, loads and loads of strep blooms. We've got, of course, the Masdevallia ignea in bloom. A couple more streps here looking absolutely marvellously wonderful. Look at that one, that is beautiful. Yeah, all looking really, really nice. I have got loads of videos where I've named all these, so I'm not going to go through those just yet. So let's just have a look through in the intermediate side and see what's in bloom over there. Now, of course, I've still got the Mandevilla in bloom, always in bloom. I really must get some more of these, see if I can get some different colours. I know I showed the Begonia luxurians a while back, but it was only like a tiny, like maybe a 10th in bloom. Now I've got the full thing in bloom and I'm getting the full scent. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like massively strong, this scent, but it's nice enough to, certainly when the sun is out, give a nice fragrance over in this side of the greenhouse. There's another one up here, but these are still tightly budded up, but this one, these have come out and you can see those beautiful yellow, I think there's the stamens on it, I can't really see. Obviously we've still got this out, the Brassia always in bloom. We've still got a few of the paths in bloom, tiny little bit there on that orchid over there. More to come though. So we have, of course, got the Laelia anceps, which is probably about 2.5 to 3 feet long now. And we've got the Habenaria medusa, which is this, I'd say the second blooming for me. The first blooming was when I bought it. I think I bought it in bud and then it bloomed. Didn't bloom for very long. I know it doesn't bloom for that long, but this is my first blooming, having had it in dormancy over the summer months. So that is a nice big long bloom spike there, much longer than last year. So I'm hoping this is really going to be spectacular this year. Still talking about blooms over here, we've got the Begonia listada and we've got the Begonia wightii, maculata wightii. That's looking better and better. I'm really not expecting these pink, I mean they look like they could be seed heads. I doubt, I don't know if it's self-fertile or not, but as I found with a lot of these begonias, the blooms really are like an addition that I wasn't expecting. I mean, you don't buy Begonia listada for the blooms, you buy it for the gorgeous leaves, but look at the blooms on there. Doesn't that look really nice, really pretty? And I think, if I remember correctly, they are quite fragrant. I'm very happy with the way that's going. I'm growing it like trailing along the bench, but of course you can have it as a bush if you trim those growing tips out, pinch it back, and of course you can have the Begonia listada as a single stem with the leaves going all along the stem, a bit like the Begonia fuchsioides over there. I mean, I've got a couple of stems on that one. I keep chopping it back. It's still in bloom, even though it's not looking its absolute best. But of course, we are in autumn, aren't we? But you can still see some blooms, plenty of buds on it coming out. It's certainly grown on me as time's gone on. I think it's one of those that the more mature it is, the nicer it looks. But it's competing there with the bougainvillea and working its way up the side wall of the greenhouse there. So while we're talking about blooms, I think it would be remiss not to mention the foliage plants. I think a lot of people, certainly in one of the quite recent surveys I did, a lot of people actually put foliage above blooms, possibly because it's an all year round thing. Oh, I've just noticed one of the listada leaves. Now look at that. Now that is not like all the other listada leaves, and it's not been sprayed with anything. The listada leaves are normally like this. It's almost like an oval shape, but with like pointy ends. Whereas that one, look how that one's grown. Now maybe I should take that as a cutting and I'll have a brand new plant and I can sell it and make my fortune. So what have we got? Of course, the Tradescantia always looking absolutely brilliant. This one is Tiana, or its real name is Calissia gentlei. Love that one. Another gorgeous one there, Gibassis. This one is quite slow, the Gibassis. It's one of those, it looks really nice when you get close up to it, but I think I need a lot more stems to really get an impact with that one. This is Fluminensis Yellow Hill. That's looking fab. And of course the quadricolor looking absolutely beautiful with, well, quadricolor, 4 colours. I'm not sure I can count 4 there. 1, 2, 3, I suppose there are. Connie Boswell's struggling a little bit. I'm not sure why. It's kind of elongated. I think the pot might be too small for it. The silver lace looking really, really nice there. I've taken some cuttings of my Tradescantia nanouk because I am going to do an experiment with them. Now these are all, at the moment anyway, without brown spots. There is one little bit of a brown spot on there. I'm trying to water them from like way back so I don't get any moisture on them whatsoever. I don't use the fogger in here anymore. Pointless. I mean, it's already 87%. It just makes no sense. I just keep that fogger as a backup just in case we ever do get any easterly winds, because obviously that can cause a problem. So we've got the green gecko here again. I don't think it's doing that well. I think it may be that it's just in too small a pot. And we've got the Masdevallia, Begonia Masdevallia F nigricans at the back there, looking pretty nice. So the begonias are looking brilliant at the moment. So I think that's it for blooms. Let's move on to the next thing on our list. So hanging Nepenthes. Now you can see how many pictures I've got on this Nepenthes here. Absolutely fantastic. Bear in mind that at the beginning of the year I had none on this, none whatsoever, because I dried it out. So this is burkei, looking wonderful. What I have noticed with this one is that it doesn't seem to want to vine. I've not had to cut any leaves off or any twining stems, only dead leaves really. It does seem to have like a basil shoot over there, so when they get going then maybe that will start to vine. But I'm quite happy it can stay as it is for all I care. That's just how I want it. Over here we've got 2 that I've now hung up because I think they're of the size that they're not really visible properly when they're on a bench. They look much better hung up. So we've got the ventrata here hanging, looking particularly beautiful. And we've got, and I love these pictures on this one. This is the one that's been burnt by the sun. You can see the leaves there. So this one is Spectabilis crossed with Platychilla. And then over here we've got the Lowiii crossed with, I think it's Ventricosa. Beautiful pictures. Best way to see them when they're hung up. Now, what I was going to discuss is methods of hanging up, because I find this a real pain. So what I've done here, like lots of people do, we get a soldering iron and we cut some holes in it and hang it with something. Now, I've used wire in the past. Here I've tried these zip ties, as you call them. I call them bar locks. That's what they were called when I worked in the bank years ago. But these zip ties anyway, just for a change, just to see how it looked. Obviously, they're not ideal because they take attention away from the plant because they're too thick and they're too black. So I'm not really that thrilled with this kind of arrangement. Over here, we've got something similar, but with wire, and I find that, especially when you're doing it with Nepenthes, they're so awkward because you try not to tip the water out, you try not to damage these lovely pictures. So I find it very, very awkward to actually thread these wires through. Obviously, the best solution is to actually get some or purchase some of the brackets. Now, I'll just have a look, see if I can find some brackets to show you. I've got some somewhere. Here we go. So on this Tradescantia nanouk, I actually bought these brackets. They were very cheap, and they just hang at the side there with these clips, and it's a nice way of making sure it's all evenly balanced. But over on my very amateur version of it, we tend to find that things aren't quite as straightforward. I have to say, I'm not the world's best at DIY, so this situation for me, it works, it's cheap, but it's not absolutely ideal. I could do with another version of hanging things, another method to hang things. This one here, what I've done on this one is I've got some garden wire, and instead of trying to make 3 separate pieces of wire, I've just used the same one and hung it up like that from one of these little things that you get that go in the rills of the greenhouse, these little loops. Can you see that? There you go. That's what's handy with having a greenhouse. I'm trying to get them quite away from the light, because even though I want them to be in bright light, I don't want them to be in any direct sun. And obviously that one is one that I'm going to have to keep a real close eye on. So methods, if you've got any methods of hanging that is nice and easy, efficient, cheap, and please tell me in the comments down below, because that's something that, although I'm doing it, we're okay, we've got a method, we've got several methods, none of them to my mind are absolutely ideal. Just want to show you, if you've not seen this before, this is a Tradescantia tricolor. This is what happens if you don't pinch it out. I quite like the green glossy leaves on that, but of course I don't want to lose what it should look like, and that is what it should look like. I know we've got lots of brown on there that wants pinching out. We've still got a few green leaves that want pinching out. That's something that you've just got to continually keep doing with this in order to keep it looking those beautiful colours. But it's worth taking a few cuttings and producing something like that. I still think that's quite nice to look at. Still on the theme of carnivorous plant. Now, because I've put some of my formerly sitting in the trays Nepenthes up in the rafters there, I've just got a couple more here, I've got some gaps. So I've actually brought in the Venus flytraps, the Dionaea muscipula. Now these have been out, I guess it'll be 2 years now. They've not actually been in the greenhouse. Now they are hardy plants. They will go outside perfectly well. They will sit there with frost on them and snow on them, and then come through to the summer months and they will start to grow again. However, I found that outside, certainly in my environment where I'm actually north facing and I'm very, very shady, the pictures don't go anywhere near as big as they do when they're inside. I've just had to repot this one because the pot had actually cracked right the way down the middle. So I thought, well, yes, when I've had them inside in the past, they haven't gone into dormancy and they didn't really show any ill effects from that. They were perfectly happy to miss dormancy. Now, you've got to be careful with that, because sometimes you can actually wear a plant out by not allowing it to have its natural dormancy. But I know from past experience that to keep it inside the greenhouse for a winter and keep it at 12 degrees, that it doesn't trouble them too much. Certainly if you do it once or twice. Maybe if you did it year upon year, eventually they might start to show some effects of that happening. So as you can see, they are in need of a little bit of a clean up. The pictures aren't that big, although there is quite a little bit of red on that one, which is nice. But these were divided. I only had one, and they look like they could do with dividing again, to be honest. So I've got to be careful, because there may well be slugs and things loitering in there. I've only put them in there today. The other thing worth mentioning, these Drosera. So we've got 2 Drosera here. They're kind of like hanging Drosera. Drosera dichotoma giant, and we've got Drosera binata variety multifida. This one's not too bad, it's still looking quite nice, but I had them over there hanging over that tray, and I knew when I did this that this could potentially be a problem. I've got the fan down there, and even though it didn't appear to be influencing what was going on there. It clearly did, and it dried them out. And I also think the lack of light. These are highlight plants. They love loads of light, and they do particularly well in this area here where I've got the grow lights giving the most light. So I've had to move those over here and see if we can bring them back to life again, because at the moment they're not looking that great. So that's something to learn from my experiences with carnivorous plants, or certainly these kind of sundews. You really want them in as bright a spot as possible. Definitely not in direct sun. Sundews do not like direct sun. They will dry up straight away. And you also need to keep them out of the wind or out of any ventilation that's blowing pretty constantly like I've got with my fans. Now, speaking of insect life and crawling, creeping, sliming life, at this time of year you're going to get lots of things coming in because it's autumn, it's beginning to go cold, and all these insects are trying to find somewhere nice and warm and dry where they can spend the rest of the winter. And to that end, I seem to have an influx of sluggage. Loads of slugs. You can see the damage on here, and I keep coming in every night and I can't catch what's causing this one. But over in this area in general, I'm getting lots of slugs. Now, what I tend to do with things like the Brugmansia, I take a pot like that and I dunk it in water and I leave it for half an hour before I bring it in, and that tends to kill most things off. But what it doesn't do, I don't think anyway, is kill any eggs off. So the fact that I'm finding these little, like 1 centimetre long slugs dotted about the place is probably due to the fact that the inside some of these pots that I'm bringing in, and I've also brought the banana in as well. Well, it's not really a banana, but it's the Abyssinian banana. I've brought that one in. I'm finding slugs on there. I've done give it the same treatment, but you know, some of them are going to escape and some of them are then going to be in the greenhouse. No way of getting out. Loads and loads of food in here. Why would they want to? So you've got to really keep an eye on that. And of course, the time to do that is night time. And when you've got so many plants all packed together, it really isn't an easy thing to do. So you've just got to look out for the slime, look out for the damage, and come in on a night and see if you can catch the little blighters in action. So while we were still on the topic of carnivorous plants, so lovely bloom on that one. Some of these really, just the same as what I was saying before, they really need more light. So that's something I'm going to have to deal with. They're looking quite nice back there. But that one in the corner there, that was a pinguicula that I thought had died, and it did actually come back. It's a good job I left it. You've got to be really aware that some of these carnivorous plants, some of the pinguiculas, some of the Drosera, you think they've gone, and it can just be that they rotted off. I mean, that one is particularly prone to it. This one, what's this one? Madagascariensis, Drosera madagascariensis. So you can see how it's got like rotted parts at the bottom, so you've got to be really careful with this. However, if you do cut all those off, it looks like there's nothing there, it will come back. So don't throw them out too soon, keep them. So I really need those moving into a higher light position, so that's something that I'm going to do at some point in the future. So moving on, external bubble wrap. So you might have seen my video, and if you haven't, I'm going to put a card up at the end of how I have externally lagged the greenhouse, and that's something that I've not done for a few years. I've certainly not done it on this big greenhouse. I did it on a 6x8 greenhouse several years ago. Much easier to do, loads of benefits in as much as you don't have to move anything. So far so good. Probably about 95% lagged now. I've got the main most difficult bits. There's still a little tiny bit on the back wall that I've not managed to do yet because it never stops raining. Probably just see it's quite light up there. So there's about a section from there to there on the outside that's not been lagged yet. But so far so good, and I can honestly say that depending on the temperature outside, but I've found in general I'm getting an extra degree of warmth, which is pretty good when you think about it. If you bear in mind that I keep my heaters on all year round. Yes, of course, in the middle of August when it's 30 degrees outside, the heaters aren't going to be clicking on, but they're still active. You know, as soon as the temperatures drop in here below 15, which they very often do in a night, even in July, August, June, so on, then they will kick on. So what I've found is prior to bubble wrapping the outside of the greenhouse, that I got like on average a 2 degree benefit. having lagged it on the outside, I'm now getting 3 degrees benefit. So you can imagine over a whole year, that will make a significant difference, or at least I hope it will. The jury is out as to how long it will last out there, whether the weather will get at it, whether it will blow away. It's been okay in the past when I used all-weather tape, but what it's going to be like with the bulldog clips that I've used, again, that remains to be seen. But it's been a few weeks, so far so good. I shall keep you updated on that. So far I would definitely recommend bubble wrapping the outside of a greenhouse. Of course, inside I think is probably more effective, but you know, why stop there? If you've got the bubble wrap, put as many layers on as you can. The only downside is you're going to lose light, but if you've got lights anyway, or you intend on buying more growing lights, then go for it, and you really will notice the benefit in your pocket. So speaking of lights, again, a recent video on lighting, and it seems that that's something that people are really interested in. And when I did a recent survey, it seemed that 50% of people, almost 50% of people, listed that as the most troublesome growth factor. So I was going to do this anyway, but I am currently studying this. Now, there are videos out there from professional growers who know much more about the lighting than I do, but I see it as being part of my own development. So I am going to look this up, and hopefully I am going to be able to improve my own setup and put it in such a way that it's easy for people to understand, because if it's easy for me to understand, then it's probably easy for you to understand as well. So that's what I'm intending to do as the next few days go on and the next few weeks go on. So if you've got any questions about lighting, or any parts of it that you don't understand, or something about it that's been troubling you, then please put it in the comments, because that'll help me when I come to make a video on it. The video that I made quite recently was like an intro into it, certainly like a simplified version. The conclusion of that was that, well, yes, you can buy expensive grow lights. Yes, full spectrum grow lights are the best, most optimal for your plants, but any lighting, providing it's like white LED lighting, is better than no lighting at all. Your plants will still get some benefit from having a white LED light, and you'll save yourself a lot of money as well. So don't completely shut off the idea, think I can't afford expensive grow light. Buy something like that. That one I think was about £30. It's a 4-foot white LED light, supposedly 6,500K. Now, again, there's all these different measurements which we will go into in another video. But again, that's something that I'm going to delve into. So please put your questions, or even if it's some extra knowledge. Michael very often puts some of his knowledge in there, and it's great to hear from him. It's great to hear from people who have this knowledge. Put it in the comments and we can all learn from it. So when I get some new grow lights, where am I going to put them? Well, I'm intending putting them where the highlight plants are. So that's going to be initially anyway over in the intermediate side. So you can see the plumeria doing particularly well this year, much better than last year, but they need more light. And I wonder if I can get some grow lights that will keep them foliated, because they always defoliate when it comes around to winter. So let's see if we can keep them growing and see if we can fool them into thinking that they are actually in the tropics and not in freezing old north of England. Cattleyas, again, they're going to be highlight. We've already mentioned the Thunbergia brownie over there is a highlight plant. So let's see what we can do. I have got one on order, and I'm going to talk about that in another video. But if you haven't seen the light video already, I'm going to put a card up, have a look at it, and let me know what you think. And that's it for today. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.